You want to climb ranked and you're going to be doing it alone. You have no friends and that's okay, I understand. With that being said, I have made my previous agent tier list about solo duo and the mid ranks. This still holds true today, but we're deviating a tiny bit and only focusing if you play alone since the vast majority of players do. And I'm also adding a nice little twist here. It's not just about the agent's ability to make an impact and solo carry in the game, but also about your inconsistencies. The truth is, none of us can 100% aim all the way to the top. We will be inconsistent. So let's say you're having an off game, you can't hit your shots. Can that agent still provide enough value to your team in order to secure the win? Can you wholeheartedly make an impact regardless? This agent tier list is a mix of opinions, data, as well as influences from other high-ranking players. Let's get straight into it, starting with the D tier. Pretty much everyone saw this coming. We're going to be starting with Wayle, Valorant's latest agent that absolutely flopped straight into the ground. We do not see Wayle, we do not care about Wayle, and it really makes us wonder what Riot is doing when it comes to this agent. The fact she's been completely neglected with no buffs or thoughts is a joke. That is the wholehearted truth. There is no room for Wayle in solo, duo, mid, top rank. It does not matter. She does not have enough abilities to make a solid impact on the game. If you're playing Wayle, you can jump in, make some space, jump out, but she is only in a support role, meaning there is no way you are carrying as Wayle. There is no way if you're not aiming, you can have a good impact. She does not check any of the boxes whatsoever, and I genuinely believe there is no reason for anyone to play Wayle. I am starting with her because even everyone else in the D tier, I believe you can make work. Wayle is just not one of those. Next up, we're going to be talking about Harbor. Harbor is still more impactful than Wayle, and there is some truth to the fact that I believe controllers are slept on in solo queue, but we'll get to that with future agents. For now, if we reel it back a little bit, focusing on Harbor, the thing is, you're slowing your team, you're not exactly fully supporting them. His abilities won't be consistent because they have a high skill ceiling, and even if you play him optimally, so you know what you're doing, you played Harbor for a long time, and your executes are really well thought out, you then need your team to capitalize on your executes in a more coordinated way to find value. So just on the straight fact that even if you play a team comp around Harbor and you're using that Clove to get some free sight pick, like I do believe with good game sense, you can still find value in Harbor. He is underpowered and Riot has already confirmed basically a mini rework is on the way for Harbor. So with those in mind and everyone already knowing Harbor's a weak character, when you factor in the fact he does need a team and he plays a lot better with a certain strategy in mind, he is very, 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 very low on anyone's pick rate factually and should be low on your pick rate when it comes to trying to climb solo queue using Harbor. Next up, we have KO. Now, I've historically put KO higher than D tier, and a lot of people are really going to disagree here, and that's okay if you really want to, but let's think about this realistically. You throw out that knife, you can find some information. Information is best used, at least this type of information, with a team in mind, meaning he gets hindered heavily in the whole solo queue aspect because you're not even fully revealing them. Here's a good little note to keep in mind as we keep going up this list. If you have to communicate to your team a lot, if you need to do heavy lifting for value to be found, solo queue gets hit. If I throw a knife and I say I spotted 5 in this area, I shout that comm out, my team still needs to comprehend this information and play around it, which is less likely to happen with, let's say, a Cipher ult. If my team Cipher ults, no communication needed, or they can communicate, and I see a visual in front of me, right? I literally see them through the wall, and that's why, especially not just we're talking about solo queue, but we're talking about the average Valorant player. So the mid to high rank, silver up to diamond. If we're basing it on solo queue overall and then focusing furthermore on silver to diamond, we have to think communication, we have to think simplicity of understanding, and when it comes to KO, I only touched on the knife and that's the problem. He's got a flash, but it's going to be less impactful and less consistent than other flashes in the game. He's got his ult that you do need to execute with your team and is overall very underwhelming. His ult, you fall, you still need to rely on your team to get back up. I genuinely don't think he's a good pick when it comes to solo queue. I'm about to get eaten alive with this one, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Tejo hits the last spot on the D tier. I know, people are going crazy because this guy, he was in S tier, but the nerfs hit him like a truck. Even look at other people's agent tier lists. They have now bumped Tejo down quite substantially because the thing that people need to understand is that Tejo was S tier based off of those missiles. He was 100% S tier based off those missiles. Pro plays, coaches, analysts all predicted that if those missiles get nerfed, it would gut the agent, and man, they were right. They nerfed him really hard, and now his value is just not there. It's not there. And let's be honest, even when he was strong, he was really strong in a Breach Tejo combo, in executes, in pro play especially. He was strong everywhere, but especially in pro play. So there was already a fact that he was used most optimally in coordination, but really strong in solo queue because of the control and damage you could do with the missiles. Since those got nerfed, I don't need to even touch on the rest of his kit. He got gutted. There are better options, and it's okay if you disagree with me. I'm okay being wrong, but it's my genuine opinion that Tejo takes the last spot on D tier in the solo queue category. Next, we're going to be going into the C tier category, starting us off with Astra. Astra is just not the strongest agent in general. We already know this. I've touched on this multiple times. I usually put Astra very low, either D or C. However, she has to stay in C due to the fact that, yes, sorry to be a broken record, she does require some amount of coordination, and you are sort of supporting your team. But at the start of this video, I mentioned it's not just about out-fragging and fragging out. It's about how much of an impact can you make on the game by supporting your team, right? So this is the key thing. Not your team needs to support you, meaning execute alongside you. You can support your team. And Astra, to be honest, in general is not very strong, but she has a place here because of the fact you can play that 4D chess and play adaptively, right? You can cover your team, you can clear sight for your team using your astral form, getting those stars down. She's just overall a weak agent, and that's what's bumping her down. But I would argue she does have substantial room for supporting the team, carrying the team through map control, carrying the team through supporting executes, even if there's not much coordination. You know they're executing, you can't control them. You can't calm and tell them what to do, but you can execute with your stars in a way to defend them, right? If they're crossing very openly and they're crossing naked, you put those stars down, you smoke it off for them, right? You support actively, and Astra's pretty good at that thanks to her astral form. Is she strong? No, because as an agent she's not very strong, but I would put her higher if she gets any sort of buff that makes her more consistent, because controllers, I'm telling you, they're a little bit slept on for solo queue. Almost no one wants to end up playing controller, but I believe they're one of the best ways to carry. I know duelist is the default, but you'll hear me out more with stronger agents a little bit later. Next, we're going to be talking about Viper. Viper, in my opinion, is even worse than Astra. Just to make it clear, I don't put them in an exact order once we get into the category. Viper almost hit D tier, but again, she's in C only due to a couple maps. If you're playing on a Viper-specific map, your executes are so substantial with zero communication and zero enabling. You are just taking enough map control and providing enough safety for your team that she gets to be in C tier. But I need to make it clear, outside her designated strong maps, hell no. Do not play Viper. The fact you can't even reposition your util literally means by default she is not a good solo queue agent. You cannot inherently carry on Viper anymore. She used to be very oppressive, and you could defend very strongly with Viper, and you could take the map on your own. You could be confident in supporting your team, but ever since those nerfs, that's just not the case. She just gets to sneak into C tier due to a few setups on a few significant maps where she dominates. That's the only reason I'm even talking about this girl. Alright, next we're going to be talking about Skye. Once upon a time, Skye used to be very high in this solo queue list, but Skye still did get nerfs, and while she's still useful, she's not dominant enough. Of course, you've got the heal, which you can passively support your team on, even with no communication, which is great. She's got info gathering with her flash, but keep in mind, again, you're info gathering for yourself more than your team, because especially in the mid ranks, they aren't listening to all the cues. Sure, your flash may find someone. Not everyone's listening to those cues that the flash found someone, similar to a KO knife, but even worse, since it's just an audio. You can lead with your dog, but there are better initiators. So Skye is an okay pick. She's just overall a little bit weak, but to make it clear, I do like how she's overall a very well balanced kit. She is someone who would easily get into B tier if Riot just tuned her numbers slightly, but they sort of forgot about her and she's not played as often anymore. So she's okay. She's okay. I don't have too much strong feelings about Skye. I just really like her kit and wish it was tuned up a tiny bit. Next, we're going to be talking about Fade. I actually believe, so she's better than Skye by a good amount. I would actually say Fade is the only C tier character that almost got into B, but she's held back by one thing. So let's think about Fade as a character in general. She is a great initiator. I like her reliability. That's the reason I wanted to put her B. I like the dogs coming out, or the cats, whatever you want to call them, wolves, I don't care. I like the ult being very wide area, and you can initiate with your team on it in a very simple way, right? The odds of you missing are low. Your team understands what to do when you're popping that ult. very light communication will lead in the right direction. I really like her haunt. I like how it shows everyone through walls. I like how the lineups for haunt are really easy, making Fade overall very accessible. But the one honest truth when it comes to Fade is that she still is a little reliant on her team there. You are initiating for your team, sure, and you are collecting info for your team as well. But if you just wanted to completely enter site on your own, you wanted the confidence, you wanted to make more impact, she does lack here, especially compared to other agents. So really, she's kind of C based off the fact that I believe there are better and more consistent initiators you can play to climb in solo queue. But by no means am I saying she's a bad agent. Keep in mind, we're not in the D tier category anymore, so I'm sort of just optimizing the list as much as possible to make sure not everyone's in the exact same place. And if there is an agent who's an alternative that I believe is better, it can knock someone down. And that's kind of what happens with Fade here, to be completely transparent. All right, next we're going into Chamber, and this is good proof that not everything's in order. Like Fade, I would choose over Chamber if you're going to choose one or the other. Of course, they're very different agents, so they have their own different, they have their land in the tier for different reasons. So Chamber in general isn't complete terrible, but think about it this way. He lacks the big thing where at the start I said, let's say you're not aiming, right? Or let's say you're struggling with your aim, you're not hitting your shots. Will you find value? And with Chamber, it's nothing. Chamber basically could be D tier if you're not aiming at all. The only reason he gets bumped up to C tier is just because if you are hitting your shots and you are an aim demon, there is value in any agent who can click and disappear, which of course, you know, get really good with the op and you can find value. So like he's in C because if you become a very good aimer and especially operator and you know his ult and stuff, you can consistently pick disappear, pick disappear. You do that once a round and you're setting your team up for a 4 versus 5 consistently. That is impact. That is impact. You get consistent at that, you will find value. But he's at the bottom of C, teetering to D because he fails every other role. You miss that shot in TP, that's it. And that's a very simple thing to miss. That will happen most of the time in my opinion. So I really don't recommend Chamber much, but I don't want to be mean and put him like in D because the people in D are just worse. All right. Time to go to the B tier into an agent that has a similar problem, but is still substantially stronger, and that is Raina. I know people are just gonna be like to bite my head off, bro. Like, why is Raina in B tier in a solo duo queue list? No, I get it. When you think solo carry, you think I'm gonna be Raina. I'm gonna 1v5. I'm gonna pop that ult. That ult doesn't even have a timer no more, and everyone's just dead. Everyone's just over when they peek me. But that's the problem. That's the problem. Your utility does not support your team. Your ability to aim, dismiss, kill, dismiss, kill, dismiss is your ability to take site. It is your ability for map control. And not only that, if you are a bottom frag Raina, you do not understand how much of a D tier agent you are playing. Seriously, you will not help your team take control. You will not help your team with picks. You are not even as in as safe of a position to kill and disappear as Chamber, right? Like, because you got to get that kill to disappear. You don't get that kill, you will die. You will die. Chamber, if you miss the shot and disappear, you still have a chance. Raina doesn't even have that. But she has a much higher upside than what I just yapped about with Chamber, where if you are hitting your shots and you believe you're better than everyone in your rank, you will climb. And it is something that a lot of creators have said, a lot of non-high ranking creators have said as well, which is just if you believe you really deserve a higher rank, play Raina. If you're not dominating and climbing up, that's it. You know, at least mechanically, aim-wise, you're in the right rank and you've got to focus on other things. With that being said, I genuinely believe if you want to climb in solo, sure, maybe, you know, Iron, Bronze, Silver, Raina makes a lot of sense. Just get better at aiming and just climb yourself out. But get better at the game sense, get better at map control, and you create situations where you're not taking 50-50 fights and you win rounds easily. Think about the rounds you've lost and you say, what just happened? You want to be the enemy making the other people say what just happened over and over and over. You want to create situations where you are not taking 50-50s, and Raina fails at that. So sure, aim demon, B tier easy, but otherwise, I don't know. I don't think she's the best pick. Next up, we have Phoenix. Again, another duelist here. So Phoenix is overall a more balanced agent. I would still prefer people climb the ranks using Phoenix because you can take those duels. You've got very aggressive flashes that are hard to dodge even as you climb the ranks. You obviously have a simple kit, you know, go in, flash, take alt orb, flash, get kill, alt, take space. Like, overall, he's a safe agent, but he is statistically underwhelming compared to other agents you can play, in the sense of if you just want to overwhelm the enemy team, Phoenix isn't going to overwhelm the other team. You can play him smart. I like how he has self-sustain. I like how his kit is overall balanced to either play selfishly or support your team, which is great, right? You can support your team by getting that wall up to block angles. I like how it goes through the wall now. I love his rework, the mini rework he had. I think it brought him up substantially in the solo queue category. However, he's not overwhelming enough to be an ANS. The thing about ANS is I believe they're genuinely strong, meaning I believe you can underperform and still carry the game. I think Phoenix is a great middle agent. He is the definition of B. He is safe, easy to use. You can pop off, you can be flashy, you can solo carry. If you're underperforming though, you might not find as much value as you can with other agents on this list. So he's just a solid pick. He's a beautiful B tier agent. Talking about B, we're going to be talking about Brimstone next. And Brimstone is very similar to Phoenix. He has a consistent kit. You can find consistent value. I believe he is not overwhelming. However, he is simple enough that you can find consistent value. And consistency is key, because consistency is what most of us are missing. Literally, even up to Ascendant. Even Immortal, but you know, I don't want to reach too high but beyond my means, but even in Ascendant, Diamond, etc., all of us have inconsistencies, and the more variable you eliminate, meaning the less inconsistencies you have throughout the game, the more likely you are to climb over time, since that is what ranked is, just winning more than you are losing. And Brimstone has a great place in being that controller that you can be consistent with. I also like controllers in general because you can support your team. If you have a dumb team who's playing aggressive, support their blind spots. Just, you can't control them, so support them. You know what I mean? If you have someone who's very, very scared, again, maybe use those smokes as a way to breach into map control or isolate for a pick. But doesn't have an overwhelming enough kit. Like, I would still do that with Phoenix with the wall and be able to get a pick with my ult, because I feel that's a little more consistent than Brimstone. But you know, if you're not a duelist player, on the flip side, someone who can consistently support, Brimstone would be the B tier pick in this case. Moving from there, we have Gecko. Gecko, again, is someone I really, really like. I hype up Gecko a lot, especially in solo queue, because of his versatility. Think about it. You've got that flash. That flash enables your team to push in. You can pick that flash back up and keep consistently pushing. Wingman is seriously invaluable. There's no other agent who can do what Gecko does at all, right? There is no trade-offs here. When it comes to getting Wingman in, you just make sure you're not throwing him willy-nilly. I used to put Gecko A for full transparency, but then I've had so many Geckos who throw Spike onto site, and then that actually loses you the round. If you give up Spike and they have control of it, you're playing now a really, really, really disadvantaged round. So I've bumped Gecko down because he teeters on high consistency with a good amount of util. Like, you know, you can genuinely initiate. You can use that ult for yourself. You can use that ult to play for your team. You can pick that ult back up if you miss. You know what I mean? Bring it back to you and miss. The flash, same idea. I like the consistent util he gets. I like Wingman. I like how you can use him as a stun or plant or diffuse. If it's a 1v2, you can throw that diffuse on, bait out the players. Like, there's so many options. I love his versatility. But that versatility does lead to inconsistencies, and a bad Gecko can kind of throw the game. So, you know, just play Gecko cautiously. Think. You know what I mean? You really have to consistently think, and that's what brings him down a little bit. But it's not a bad thing. It's where his upside also benefits a lot. Next up, we got Sage. I do like Sage. Sage has a very strong place on certain maps, and I do believe you can consistently find value with your wall, because if you think about it, if you're playing Sage and you are using your wall properly on defense, you can substantially gain map control, right? Think split on mid or keeping Icebox kitchen safe, right? If you're playing Sage thoughtfully, it's really great. And a lot of Sage mains, I know you've got cheeky walls, and that's not a bad thing. Like, the way Grim plays, or the Grim walls, are not inherently a bad thing. And even better yet, people fall for these off angles in Immortal because they are still not common. You know how much more people fall for them in the mid tiers? Because think about your average game. How often do you see Grim walls? You just don't. You just don't. They're still niche, even though people know about them. Very many people know about them. So if you want to learn some off angles, you want to learn cheeky plant spots, you want to learn cheeky ways to deny, like diffuse, then Sage is cool. But I actually think Sage's value comes from being cheeky. comes from literally being able to play differently each round. If you're a very predictable Sage, she's kind of shit because she's, you know what I mean? Like, once you use your slow orbs and your wall's gone, like, that heal isn't substantial. You know what I mean? The res can, of course, turn around a round. A lot of people also don't know how to use the res, so it's really her inconsistencies, right? Bait the res if you need to. Make sure you're resing at the right time. A lot of people waste it. Make sure you're using the wall differently each time. Sometimes you can rat on top of it, sometimes behind it. Sometimes you can grim wall in order to get an off angle and a pick. And again, a pick early into a 4v5 is very advantageous. So I love how versatile she can be, but you can also kind of throw. So she has similar vibes to Gecko. Very different than Gecko, don't get me wrong, but similar pros and cons in the sense of how things can go for you. So can you carry yourself using Sage and solo queue? Yeah, but you're going to be doing a little bit more heavy lifting to do it. Some of you aren't going to be surprised. I usually put Cipher pretty up on my agent tier list, but Cipher is going to be landing in B tier due to the fact that if we're going to be talking about a Sentinel, he's a very strong Sentinel, but if we're only solo queuing here, you know, you can only handle one site at a time. You know what I mean? I do like how he's still the agent that you can leave your setup on a site, you can predict rotates, you can gain map control, you can get lots of info. So I want to make it clear that Cipher is invaluable, but I'm imagining in my head how much of an impact Cipher has in the mid solo queue rank. So I actually think it's like silver to plat that is bringing Cipher down in my head. That's how I'm imagining it. Because if you have a site completely locked down and you're a Cipher main and you're listening to me, let me know if I'm wrong. You have a site completely locked down, you're delaying for a while and your team comes in for the rotate. They all rotate safe, giving up the rest of map control. The enemy team simply rotates off your site and Cipher loses his value because retaking on Cipher is just no fun. It's really hard. Also, attacking a Cipher is inconsistent if you're not really good at him. And that's a pretty big disadvantage if you don't get good at Cipher. And the thing is, if your team is just not playing around you, is not playing around your util, around your calls, around your ability to take map control, it sort of falls apart. Because unlike a smoke, again, I'm sorry for hyping controllers, who have a visual block. You throw that smoke out, your team knows, okay, the likelihood of me being shot through that smoke right now is low, and they'll play around it is higher than, okay, I've got a trip on the flank, I'm camera, I can see this area is free, let's head through here, you're gonna need an IGL. So to find value on Cipher is a little bit weak, but of course he's still Cipher, he's still strong, you can hold down a site, and he's a solid agent, so I'm not gonna put him below B tier, but that's my thinking. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Next up, we're going to be talking about Deadlock. Deadlock is a solid agent. I know a lot of people would like me to put her like A or S tier, but I think in a solo queue perspective, while she is very strong, I don't think she's overwhelming enough because of her trips, her sound trips. I still don't find them consistent. People, however, okay, here's the thing. People have a lot of nice setups. And if you're a Deadlock who's going to consistently know your setups in spots where basically the enemies always have to make a sound, right? Certain plant areas, diffuse areas, flanks at a distance where they're going to shoot from behind, meaning it causes it to go off, then it works out. But I do believe they're a little bit underwhelming in consistency. However, I know Deadlock's ult is fantastic at a pick, and anything where you're getting a free pick is very substantial. I know it's not fully free, but you get the idea. The wall is very powerful at keeping enemies at bay. They really got to shoot it or wait it out. It takes a long time to wait it out, and if they shoot it, you get the info. You can really stall people. The GravNet is just so strong. You throw that wall, you're already delaying them. Your team finishes that rotate. You throw the GravNet, you get a flash in. You guys peek together, it works. But no matter what, I still believe she's somewhat reliant on her team. I just don't think she's top tier in the whole solo queue area, but that's the definition of B. Sure, there are Rainas where it's back and forth and B is more complicated, but I believe everyone else here is just a solid pick. If you're a Deadlock main, yes, you can solo queue out. I don't think she's absolute best at solo queuing out, but you have substantial power in order to make an impact at a consistent basis, but she's not overtuned in my opinion, so I put her in B tier. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, moving on to ISO. ISO is a little bit more like the other duelists. It's just that ISO has some amount of consistency. The one consistency he does have, which I like after his little rework, is popping that shield. Popping that shield is a nice way to now know if you're peeking into a 1v1, it's no longer 50-50, which is really cool in the sense of no other agent has the ability to just pop that shield, peek. If someone else is peeking me, it's not a 50-50. Yes, I understand people are going to roll their eyes like, what about flashes? Which is true. But if I pop my shield and peek and no one's peeked me yet, I can actually scale up. Because as I'm scaling up, whenever someone peeks me, it's still no longer 50-50. There's no real chance I'm going to miss that flash. I could also peek And if no one's speaking, I can throw up the wall and scale with my team. The team generally understands when that wall is moving forward, we can move forward with it. He's an easy to understand agent. I do like his ult in the sense that it's easy to find a pick, but that's where his inconsistency comes from, because ISO in the end still has a Raina problem. It's like Raina on less steroids. Let's think of it this way. Raina, you're all aim, no game. You can make Raina S tier. ISO, if you're all aim, he won't exceed Raina, but at least if you don't have the aim, you can find value by making sure to go up first, scale for space with that wall. You can find a pick with your ult, but then there's a little bit of a downside because your team should scale when you get that pick. So in case you lose, they can get that pick for free, or at least they can push while there's one less enemy on site and you guys are attacking, which for some reason I don't see happening enough. Like if 5 of you are pushing one site and ISO gets an ult in, don't wait for that 1v1 to finish. Push as the other guy is in a different dimension, meaning there's one less player on site right now. So I don't know why, why we don't see that. Keep in mind, one defender dead or unpresent is more valuable than one attacker dead or unpresent. Just to make it sense, it's not an even one-to-one. A one-to-one trade is not beneficial for the defender side. It's only beneficial for the attacker side. If you go 1-for-1 as you're attacking, that's a positive. If you get your pick on defense but then die, that's a negative because of map control. Just to make that a little bit clear. He's got the invulnerable, but overall, that's still not the best because you have to set up your team. However, if you're, invulnerabling for yourself, pop in that shield, at least you can consistently take fights that are immediately in your advantage, which is why I like ISO. But B is the best I can put him in my opinion. As we enter the A tier, now we're in the category where I believe if you linearly get better at the agent, you are linearly more able to consistently climb the ranks. That is weird. That's a weird way to put it, but I'll try to explain the best I can, starting us off with Neon. So Neon's actually a good way to start with my example and my mumbo jumbo that I just said. Basically, let's think of Neon. Neon did get nerfed, which is why she's going from S to A tier from the last agent tier list, but overall, she's still very, very, very strong, especially in solo queue. Neon is someone that is hard to deal with if you are good at Neon. So of course there's that caveat, but I have to assume that anytime you're playing, you're overall going to get better over time. Neon has her movement. There is just no secret in the fact that a lot of players, Temet gets really good at Neon, right? Temet makes it so his movement is so smooth that it's hard for his own rank to even shoot him. We're talking about the best of the best. The top 1% of Valorant players who are top 1% of Valorant aimers still have trouble hitting that Neon. If just within gold you become as good as a plat Neon, it's going to be hard for those golds to hit you. You just have to be one rank ahead in movement category to linearly climb with Neon. And that's just not including the fact that in a solo queue perspective, with that movement, with those picks, with the wall, with the stun, she's good at taking space. And that's what we want to see. That's why she's above average and in the A category, because as a solo queue player, if you can get picks and take space, you are leading the team. And if in gold, you're like, I'm Neon, I'm going in, follow me. That's all you need to say. It's simple, it's nice. You've taken space. As long as hopefully your team is following, you are now in a benefit, right? You get a pick, you've taken space, you are now in the advantage category at the start of the round. And that's how we got to look at it. How likely are you able to consistently put your team at an advantage? And to be honest, if you get good with Neon movement, pretty consistently. And I really like Neon for that case. Of course, she's got the ult, which can absolutely dominate. It is a little bit contingent on making sure you get good with the ult, but again, that can be applied to most agents. So all we have to look at is once you get good, how likely are you to make an impact? And with Neon, I think it's pretty high. Next up, we're going to be talking about Yoru, and I really like Yoru. He's a fantastic example of an A-tier agent with a low win rate. He only has 45% win rate, which might make him seem like a bad solo queue player or agent. But no, it's just his high skill ceiling. The truth is, the average Yoru isn't good enough to use Yoru to climb, and that is okay. However, he goes into the A category really quickly once you put some time into him, because like I've mentioned with Sage and I guess Neon as well, but more Sage and some other characters I'm going to mention, your ability to be unpredictable, your ability to take map control, your ability to have the enemy say what just happened is going to be your biggest advantage in solo queue. Disorienting the enemy is easier than coordinating your team. That is my kind of philosophy in ranked. That's how I see it. You may disagree, and that again is okay. But as Yoru, you can take space, you can change your playstyle every single round, you can be a little bit of a rat, which I absolutely love. Why would I take a 50-50 as Chamber? Like, why would I peek as Chamber, look for the pick and TP out, still having the chance to die, over being a little rat with Yoru, distracting the enemies with a clone, and then getting a free pick from behind and TPing out? That is nice, clean way to try and win a 50-50. Now, Yoru's contingency here is understanding that where you're hiding and what you're doing will catch the enemies off guard. If you're hiding in the most obvious rat spots, it's not going to work with Yoru, and I think that's what a lot of people try to do as Yoru. They also have trouble with the ult, which I had for a while. You can see, so I have my own videos up showing how shit I am with stuff, and I'm okay with it because I learn, and that's the biggest thing. I also talk to Radiants and stuff like that. I like to get info, and that's what's happening here. Like, you gotta learn the agent. If you're ulting as Yoru, make sure not to only drone, which is what I used to do, but instead get ready to look for picks, get ready to pop out and add pressure, meaning if I ult into sight and I use a clone on one section to make noise, and I pop out of the ult from another section, and now the enemies are disoriented, right? I've split their focus. That allows my team to push main. The enemies can only focus on so many places at once. Take advantage of where they're not focusing on. Hopefully that makes some sense. But because Yoru has that complicated aspect, he's not the absolute best of the A tier, but he teeters on the A tier because once you get the hang of him, you can consistently mess up your enemies. You can consistently disorient your enemies, and I'm a very, very big fan of that in solo queue when more things can slide and more things are prone to chaos. Alright, next we're going to be talking about Jett. Jett is very consistent. That's the thing. Unlike Yoru, Jett is very consistent and still has a lot of ways for playstyle. You can snipe and dash. I would say she is a little contingent on still being good at like the op. I feel like op crushing with Jett is really, really strong, especially in the mid ranks. So get good at that op, but you can pick and dash in general. You can updraft into awkward positions. Make sure to take advantage of off angles, take advantage of being sneaky. That is a very, very, very big one. Jett can suffer a bit in the sense that her ult is hard for a lot of people to still use, but learn to use her ult and then she can be a consistent A. I would say that's the only big contingency. I know I just said that with the op, but the op is more like a huge buff. Getting good at the op is a huge buff, but getting consistent with the ult is more like a requirement. And a lot of people are inconsistent with their ult, but you got to keep in mind it's a very, 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 very powerful eco weapon, or even better yet, you can literally have a team go from eco to full buy just because you can spot someone to fill the gap. So meaning 3 can full buy, you spot someone, you ult, it's a full buy round, which is huge. Strategically, that is very, very big. But Jett still has a little bit of a downfall, which is you got to get the mechanical aim up, and that's just my only gripe with duelists in general. Yoru is a little bit of an exception because Yoru, if you're underperforming aim-wise, that's why I like him, and that's why I kind of glaze him a lot. You can still find impact with map control and stuff, and Jett still has that. Luckily, she doesn't have the full Raina problem, but I would say she teeters pretty close on making sure you perform. Like, if your aim isn't up to snuff, she does lose quite a bit of value, but she doesn't lose all her value like Raina. Hopefully I'm being clear. I know in A it should seem like a clear home run, but Jett's just one of those ones where it's not a clear home run, but if you're doing really well, she is a menace in solo queue. So she has to be an A just because she's strong, man. She's a strong agent. Next up, we're going to be talking about Raze, and again, another duelist, meaning there is some sort of consistency in the fact that you want to be performing pretty well, but Raze is also a menace, and I think she can be a little bit more consistent than Jett due to her abilities. Just the boombot being able to clear corners for your team, again, that's somewhat of a support area. The fact you can off angle with the satchels, you can play really aggressive like Jett with the satchels. You don't get the one and done like other agents, which is a little bit of a downside, but it's made up a lot by those nades, which again, clearing. It's the fact that she can clear, right? It's the fact that you can lead into sight more consistently. You boombot an angle, it clears one angle, as you nade another angle, which clears someone from peeking you, as you take space, which is a big one. Like, I would say you can consistently, man, it's solo queue, which this makes it a little unfair, but as long as you have one smoker and you're good talking to that smoker, like, hey, can you just smoke off one sight line for me, and you can get one smoker to listen, she's pretty consistent. You know what I mean? Because you can clear the rest, take space, and then just have some aim ready, get that pick, and she can be very, very consistent. She's also, in my opinion, a little bit better as a defender duelist than other duelists are, but again, a little bit of my opinion there just comes from that damaging utility that can really hold back players, right? You got the nade, you got the boombot, you can stall a push a little bit better than other duelists. Not fully, but a little bit better than other duelists. So I think she's slightly more consistent, and that's not talking about her ult. You know, her ult, there's a lot of rosas. A lot of people do whiff that ult. I understand it's not the most consistent thing, but it's still easier to be consistent with that Raze ult than Jett knives. IMO. Next up, we have a really weird one. I've historically shat on this guy, bro, but I need to apologize, and I do understand why in solo queue he deserves to be here, but I kind of got gaslit into putting him here from other lists that people say he's really strong. Okay, it's Breach. It's Breach, okay? It's Breach. The thing about Breach is that he's good. Breach is good, and in the solo queue area, he's an absolute menace. But man, he's very contingent on being good at the agent. But I promised one thing to you guys, and I said it right away. We are assuming you're going to get better at the agent, and you're going to be good at agents. You're not going to stun and blind your own team, because Chamber is historically super known for that. You are messing up your team badly, but that is unfair, and the comments called me out on that, which is why I stopped in this tier list completely saying we're gonna suck at the agent. That is counterproductive, and you're right, I'm shifting my focus here. You get good at Chamber, he's a strong solo queue agent. You consistently terrorize the enemies. What did I say? What did I say? It is easier to disorient the enemies than coordinate your own team, and I underestimated his ability to disorient the enemies. I underestimated his ability to understand, to understand the game. You need some game sense, understand where they could be coming from, aftershock an area, blind in, and lead your team into any site, or to, with one other player, lead through mid for map control while your other three are sneaking onto site or waiting. You could fake a site a lot better. Like, Breach is impactful, and I think it's unfair that I said he wasn't super impactful or that you're just gonna suck with him. So I'm rescinding everything. I'm listening to you guys. Breach is a strong solo queue character and will get stronger and stronger the better you get at him. He's not picked very often, so I feel like I haven't been terrorized enough by Breach, so maybe I don't have that PTSD that others do. But yes, a good Breach can be very, very, very menacing. Sova hits us next on the A tier, and I think this is a no-brainer because Sova has such a high consistency. You are finding info for not only yourself, but very obviously for your team. Your darts scan, it is a visual obvious. Teammates can play around very, very well on those visual cues. You've got the owl drone, same idea. They play very, very well on those visual cues. You've got the ult, which historically, I know a lot of people just use it for post plant, and to be honest, it's a very great post plant. No lineup needed, no nothing. You can be from a lot of different angles, but even furthermore, you can lead people into sight with that ult, right? If we're just imagining pushing a site, you scan someone and shoot, it brings a lot of confidence because you know the other player is so busy dancing around trying to survive or is about to die that you're now pushing a site with an advantage just because you pinged one person with that drone. So I do like Sova because of his consistencies. The more you get good at him in the sense of the more lineups you have and the more areas you can scan and the fact you can scan multiple times per round all add up to be great. That's not even counting that the shock darts, while nerfed I know a long time ago, which make it harder to get kills with, still allow you to clear corners. I find it a little bit like a lot of times if I'm ratting, I won't TP out if I get cleared with one shock dart because it's not enough. But a lot of Sovas are getting used to double shock darting to make sure it's properly cleared, or shock darting two different angles, which still cause chaos as you push a site or take control. And then on defense, he's great. On defense, he's really great. You can dart far to tackle slow pushes. You can drone to safely get info, or if they're pushing quick, you can just save your util, and he's really a good agent for retakes, which is a big one here that I haven't touched on. Agents that are good on retakes are also kind of underrated, not gonna lie, especially in solo queue, since a lot of times people chicken out. You can't control your teammates chickening out, but you can control the retake being easier if you're playing Sova. Another agent I slept on and you guys convinced me on, Vice. Vice is a pretty good solo queue agent. I wouldn't say the absolute, like, she's not like overtuned, so she sneaks into A tier based off of information I've been told, and I think I understand why. Vice is a solid A tier pick, especially in solo queue because of her consistency. That flash gives you info, but you can also use it multiple times. You can set it up in very safe areas. Like it's hard to mess up the flash, which is very valuable. The fact it's hard to mess up the flash is very valuable, and something that was made clear to me, which makes sense, is similar to how Jett is good because you can pick and disappear. Vice is good because that wall can isolate 1v1s, and I think I underestimated the cool setups you can do with the wall. So as long as you understand how to set up the wall and how to use it to disorient the enemy team, sorry for using that word a lot, but I think it makes a lot of sense, where you can get free picks out by isolating one player. It makes Vice pretty good. The ult is also straightforward when you ult the site for a retake. Again, don't underestimate retakes because it's very valuable. Being able to retake that site using that ult or take site using that ult is pretty good. I don't find her overwhelmingly overpowered, so I would say she's just a solid A tier. Like, she's just in the meta right now as an agent above average. That's how I see her, but I just want to make it clear I almost put her in B tier. It's just I'm trying to listen to higher ranks, so she's in A because of that. At least I'm honest. Next, we're going to be talking about Killjoy, a very obvious A tier pick, to be honest. Killjoy has a lot of consistency, like way too much consistency. Just learn a few setups for each map and then learn to cycle them so you're not super predictable, because people will eventually know where everything is. So don't keep your freaking setup the exact same. That's the only downfall of Killjoy. Otherwise, I really enjoy having a good Killjoy on my team every single time. And it's always when I'm solo queuing, because they have the ability to support the team so well. The ult is just super simple. It's rarely broken in the mid-tier ranks, but okay, even in the high-tier ranks, it always adds a ton of pressure, even if they are trying to push it or destroy it. You have a lot of advantage with that ult. You have your flank control with an invisible alarm bot, which I absolutely love. You have your mollies for post plant, which are always pressured. I know people shoot them, we're not as dumb anymore, but they always cause pressure. And even if you don't want to just be simple and post plant, you can also use it to isolate a lot of angles, clear corners, etc. And that turret, the fact you can peek off your turret to make a 1v1, a 1.5 versus 1, or the fact you can use your turret, which is, I don't see people enough, use your turret at weird angles. A lot of people expect you to peek off your turret, so if you always put it in front and you're ready to peek where the turret is, the enemy's ready with their crosshair to shoot you instead of the turret. But if you put your turret at an off angle, they expect you to peek from a different angle, and then you peek off your turret and you're actually behind them. Insane. Actually insane. Killjoy has the potential to consistently delay diffuses, to consistently delay pushes, and to consistently be an absolute menace. I enjoy Killjoy. The only reason that she's not S is because it still comes with the knowledge of you, with the knowledge of being able to mix it up, and with game sense, because you have to be mixing it up intentionally. You understand what the enemy team comp is, you want to understand how they're playing, and be intentional about how you mix it up. So she's not just straight up consistent with no thoughts. She has a skill ceiling, and when utilized, I like Killjoy. She's up there. Now we're going to be entering the S tier, and I only have 2 agents in the S tier. I think I actually might get flamed for this, but we're going to be starting with Clove. Clove obviously has been strong for a long time, just between A and S, usually A nowadays, but I still believe they're so strong. So strong. I think the thing about Clove, I mentioned it multiple times, controllers are so underrated for solo queue, but their biggest downfall is you're busy smoking for your team. You might not have enough impact even if you're an aim demon, so you don't want to lose both. There's only 2 agents, and coincidence, there's only 2 agents left to place, and coincidence, we're in the S tier. So let's talk about it. Clove is an easy S tier because you can control for your team, meaning, again, enable them to push places they might be scared. Enable map control by simply, like the fact you throw down a smoke and you change how the map is being played immediately, regardless of the positioning. As long as you are aware on how to smoke, you can control how the next moves are going to be played in this little game we call Valorant that can be like chess by throwing down smokes. But then as Clove, you can push aggressive. You can revive yourself, obviously, to keep pushing aggressive. You can get a pick and heal. You can die and then still smoke off the area. Meaning, as Clove, the only agent in which you can smoke to enable your team, tell them to help you push a site, get your own pick, and then die. And that 1-for-1 trade being immediately advantageous because in the afterlife, you are still smoking off for whoever's remaining. You are still able to smoke off spike if, let's say, you're defending and that was during a retake, and you're able to smoke off entrances if that was after you post plant, right? Flush those smokes, tell them to hold where the entrances are on site, and that's that. I think you can consistently be so valuable as Clove, and that will roll us straight into the last agent. Arguably not better than Clove just because of the afterlife protection that Clove has, but Omen is the last agent we're going to be talking about for very similar reasons. I've been playing Omen a lot, and I've been climbing the rank, if you want to look at my channel, doing challenges. I went shotgun only. I don't know if you'll be able to see it by the time this video goes up, depending on the order I publish, but I'm doing ranked challenges where I literally nerf myself and I'm winning due to Omen's versatility. I just need to learn Clove next because I think Clove might be better, but Omen has a similar ability to play aggressive, go for those picks, and then smoke off your team and enable plays through map control. You can be sneaky within your own smokes, you can be a rat, look for picks, and one thing I like more about Omen than Clove is something, broken record, you guys are gonna hate this word, to the ability to disorient the enemy. That's the one thing. Omen, with his TPs and his ult, is able to pressure and disorient the enemy, and I love that in the mid ranks. The fact I can both smoke for my team, do similar to Clove, which is play aggressive, and then flush my smokes to defend a post plant, or for a retake, is great. But then add on top of that, that when you TP, you can confuse the enemies. You can have them looking all over the place. You can retake and find value even if I don't get a pick. If I'm able to smoke 2 areas and have 2 enemies focus on me, looking for me while I TP, and I lose a 1v2 gunfight, the fact my team can then just swing and have the advantage regardless of what they do, flash, no flash, whatever, because they're focused on me, is advantageous. And you can do it pretty consistently. At least I found it not too hard. I just picked up Omen and I'm finding success pretty quickly, and he benefits from that high skill ceiling, which is the fact is the better you get at him, his skill ceiling so high that you make crazier and crazier plays, and his ult can be used in so many different ways. His TP, of course, for an off angle at the start, or to TP aggressively, or to get into safety. And then everything I said about other controllers, I love controllers in general for being able to both enable yourself and your team. Play in them, be ratty, eco rounds, you can shotgun up close. It's really, really interesting how much impact controllers have, and I believe I slept on them, and I think most people sleep on them in solo queue. Everyone knows controllers are important. People literally say no one's picking smokes. We all know that, but I don't think you realize that when you're the controller, you have a grasp on the game more than a lot of other agents. Most people think it's duelist for solo carrying. I think it's controller and then duelist. I don't know. That's my opinion, and then specifically Clove and Omen have huge impacts. I don't know. Maybe if I'm overhyping them, you can let me know. But I really think they're strong. Let me know what you think down below, and good luck solo queuing. Okay, bye.